principal consultant at Ikena Consulting, where I give engineering leaders evidence-based independent assessments of their API governance and delivery risks. Today I have Andreas with me from DATEV. How are you, Andreas?
I'm fine.
Good, 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 good. It's been good meeting you, Andreas, and just hearing about all the great work you do at DATEV. In our talks before this, we mentioned how very few people, maybe outside Germany, may have heard of DATEV. So today, I'd like to hear, we'd like to talk about how you've been able to scale API governance at DATEV, and just maybe learn some lessons from kind of the great work you guys are doing there. So, maybe first of all, just start. Let our audience hear a bit more about yourself. Tell us a bit more about yourself and maybe how you started your career. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Andreas Reetz. I'm working in the area of API management since 12 or 15 years. Something before I've done REST APIs, I have done a lot of stuff in the SOAP area. And in my current job role, I'm the architect and lead for the API management and governance at DATEV. From my education, I'm a mechanist. Before I've studied computer science, I really worked on hardware machines and so on and so on. And so I'm in business since 94 or something like
Wow.
that.
Really interesting. Really interesting. And tell us a bit about DATEV. It's this huge company that many people don't know about. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, okay. DATEV is also not very known in Germany. Most of the people knows DATEV from their payment checks because they are always stamped from DATEV on it, and we make mainly software for tax accountants, and we are also owned by tax accountants. So, we are a cooperative, and we have over 90% of the market in this area in Germany. All stuff which has to do with tax and um, payrolls and so on is mainly done in Germany by DATEV.
Interesting.
So we have we are owned by 40,000 members, roughly. The number changed frequently, but that's the number. And if we are looking on who are using our software, we are somewhere in the millions. So really a lot of people are using us, and we have 9,000 employees. And from that, we have roughly 4 or 5,000 software engineers.
Wow.
So that is
So that's
quite
a huge
big.
scale of engineers. You say 45. Yeah. Yeah. 4 to 5,000 engineers software
No,
engineers that build software
for
at DATEV. Oh, sorry, go on.
500, not 40,000.
500.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, yeah. So 4,500 engineers at DATEV. What does API governance look like at that scale on a day-to-day? What do you typically do in your role as you kind of head the API management, API governance function, API platform team? What does day-to-day involve for you? Yeah.
Mainly we do to empower the teams by themselves to use our environments and to build up good APIs. We build tools and so on to give to pick up the developers and the requirements engineers and so on where they stand. So we try to introduce or integrate the tools into the workflow of our customers. And our customers are mainly the developers who are develop APIs and also use APIs. That's our main focus on that side.
Mm.
So there we have several educational lessons which we do frequently, which can booked by our employees. And also we have a standardized consulting package and so on and so on. That's on that side you can't look on each part. You have to delegate it to the teams.
Yeah, yeah. And this what strikes me, or what struck me when I first spoke to you, Andreas, is like
Yeah.
you guys seem to have a really mature API platform, really mature API governance setup in how you approach it, which frankly, in lots of our organizations I talk to, don't have the level of maturity
Yeah.
that you have at DATEV. So tell us a bit about how you got there. I'm sure it wasn't all like that in the beginning. Probably had at some point where there was lots of maybe chaos perhaps, but along the line you've put in all these, you have a platform, you have a trade, you have, you mentioned trainings on how to use the platform, which many organizations don't have. And you mentioned providing almost like a consulting aspect and seeing the engineers as customers. Again, not all organizations have this in place. So tell us about a bit about that journey of kind of how it first looked and how you were able to, what were the key things you did in scaling governance to where you are?
Okay, we started with API management at DATEV at 2020. In the very first beginning, we built up the infrastructure and the automatization uh, at the same time. And that's quite important because most of the API management solution which you will find on the market has no automatization at all, and especially no automatization which fit into your environments or in the journey of the developers. And that was one of the very first point which we really delivered, and we started with only one big application and then scale it through more and more. Currently, we have in our API management over 300 development teams. So that's so the teams as independent as we could by our own. And that's really a goal which we try to do at the start. So, yeah.
Yeah. See, I just love what you said there, Andreas, around making the feature teams, the development teams, as independent as they can. So enabling them, giving them all the, tooling, support, everything to make them independent. But that was the philosophy, and that's really a platform team kind of philosophy, to support and make them independent as they can with the right, support, guardrails, controls, everything. And honestly, I have talked to teams where it's not always like that. For some teams, they're like, no, 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 we can't let you guys manage everything yourselves. We really need to control this bit, or we really need to make sure.
Yeah.
And so that I'm sure there must be a lot of, as well as the enabling and providing all the tooling, also a lot of trust and support that you're providing the teams to make that happen at that scale.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really sometimes also a problem because the skills in our development teams are not equals. If you are going from team to team, you will find different skill sets, and sometimes you also see that uh, that they have a point. We have done it every time on that way, and you really have to change their minds that they understand that the API is not something technical, it's really a product, and that's quite important for our platform and so on. But that's quite challenging.
Hmm.
Every week, I got one or two talks through Teams, and where I try to do transport this behavior. But it's not so easy because the development teams always have pressure to deliver, and
Yeah.
that's something which comes on plus.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that whole idea of APIs as products, APIs as, not just a technical interface, but actual the interface to a service,
Yeah.
and making sure that it's seen that way. It's not just like necessarily just a data transfer thing is so important across. Just to talk about this now, there was something as well when I was speaking to you before this. You talked about how you offer different tiers of governance, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, with DATEV, you have external APIs, you have your internal APIs, partner APIs, and things like that. Yeah, how do you differentiate governance? Do you govern them all the same way? Do you apply the same standards and processes to all these APIs, or do you have different tiers of governance for these APIs?
Okay, we have different tiers cost on. It's quite many APIs which the teams provided are just provided for themselves. And I really think, okay, we give them the information which standards they have to exceed, and there are also some of the rules which also were a must requirement for them. But it makes, from my point, hard for them to understand that an API will go through the life, and sometimes they are not alone anymore. But it's sometimes um, to give the teams more freedom to do their things. We have less rules for the teams which are having or which provide the APIs not only for themselves. On the second tier, we have APIs which provided through other teams in DATEV, and there it's quite important that the quality exceed some standards. Caused on there, we have the costs of using the API over several teams. And so in order to reduce the cost and the time to delivery, time to market, it's quite important that they also use this common standard to really get speed on using those APIs. And the third tier is the APIs which we provide to the outer parties, and there we do really reviews, manual reviews, where our team looks on the APIs and look on what's good and what not, and make a deeper consulting on that cost. That's a face to the outside, and it can damage the brand by themselves. So that's mainly our focus on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And just to move on to talk about like AI, how AI supports governance.
Yeah,
Previously we've talked about this and how as you have different tiers, different APIs, different categories of APIs, and the different tiers of governance that you apply to them. You told me you've also looked at using AI in
yeah.
some areas to assist some of your governance practices. Can you tell the listeners a bit more about that, your experience with AI, where that worked and where that hasn't worked?
Okay, currently we rolled out a review assistant that help us mainly for the B2B API. And if the teams are using this tool, we get the review mainly in one session done. They fulfill the standards, we will find some things, and we just do on the review some cherry picking. So like names of some resources, change it because it's not so clear and so on. But if a team do not use that, in the past we normally have 4 to 5 rounds. So that's also the point that the time to market is better because they are faster. An appointment where we can do those talk together, there are days between because we are quite good booked, and so that's much better if they do it by them own, and that really helps. And the newest thing where we try to do is help the developers with the thing which come from linting and so on, to give them advices how they could solve the points which the linting will find. And that's also a point where we see AI will improve the speed of the
Okay,
developers.
that's cool. So AI picking up from the issues the linter found and helping the dev resolve those issues.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, it's a good point.
yeah, yeah. And what we also try to do is give the teams a tool where they can design an API with help of AI, but that's in the very, very beginning. That,
Yeah, yeah. So just to summarize, DATEV is looking at these three areas. One is AI as an AI design review assistant, so an
yeah,
AI assistant for design reviews. The other side is AI for resolving issues picked up by a linter. An automated linter does a static check on an API
yeah,
contract description file, finds issues, and then the AI assists the developer in fixing those issues. And then the third part is AI from the design side of designing the API following your guidelines. Now, you mentioned in an interesting stat there that when statistic that where you're using API for AI for design reviews, you go from like I think you said some like 4 to 5 meetings to just one meeting because it just and that's a huge improvement, isn't it? To go from 4 to 5 meetings
correct.
to one. And tell us a bit about cost, right? Because in terms of when we talk about AI, we can't talk about when we talk about AI model usage, we cannot not talk about the cost in terms of tokens.
Yeah.
What's been your experience with the cost of using AI in these scenarios you've mentioned?
Okay, you see, if we just prove everything which we have in our catalogs, for example, in production with AI, that will cost something about 400, 500 to 600 euros. And,
Is that,
you must,
sorry, did you just say 500 to 600 euros only,
yeah,
or
yeah,
thousands? Is that thousands or just
100.
okay?
But that's only for one run.
Oh,
You must really take care where you using AI and for which things you're using it, and especially if you are uh, proven an open API document with AI, that's quite expensive if you see the time. It's one
yeah,
core is not so expensive, but if you for example, do some automatic stuff, do it every day, then the cost will sum up and you will go in areas where you can buy a car or a house in our area. That's always to have in mind what you're doing there. And especially if you do checks, for example, at the AI assistant, we combined that AI with linting results. So a lot of the stuff can you not find by just using AI. You have
mm,
to combine that and to have a better look on what's going on in your company. Normally, it's enough if you just do the linting stuff and go through all the catalogs or inventory and look what's happened there and see where the problem heat maps are and where you have to consult the teams how to do it. That's something which we will do roughly in the next month. Do more those reportings on the existing inventory.
okay, okay. That's interesting. If you were to talk to, for maybe engineering leaders or people in charge of API governance who are looking to see how whether kind of AI assistance in terms of governance adds value and justifies the cost, where would you think is the highest value place, really? We've mentioned a few instances, right? But where have you found is the highest value place to first look for in terms of applying AI assistance in your governance?
Okay. Um, the highest improvement you will get at the creation of an API.
Okay.
And also to improve the quality of an API. Because my point is always to get as early in the process in the of creation of an API. If you find their problems and fix it, it's cost not so much.
Mm,
And that's really something which we learned because we introduced linting much too late, and that really will cost our company a lot of money.
mm,
So if you are going to the early stage and the developer or the designer or the team see the problems very early, they can avoid that problems, and so they all the development stuff which comes behind is less expensive.
yeah.
So that's my point on that.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's a really good point. If we can catch these things as early as possible, right?
Yeah,
The place to get the standards right in the first place, or the place to get conformant APIs is right at the beginning, but right at the beginning while designing it, so we don't need to do any kind of rework. That makes a lot of sense. Let's move on to talk about developer experience. One of the things about API governance is, we want to avoid API governance becoming like a bottleneck, right? Or
yeah.
too much bureaucracy. And it looks like you guys have something really efficient going on. So tell us a bit about how you've avoided, what are the key things you've done to avoid API governance being a kind of bottleneck to API delivery?
Okay, the very first point is we do not introduce a point in the development where we are required in a point that somebody have to look on it. We have only for except the B2B APIs, for the internal usage, we have everything automated, and the only point where they really must get in touch with us is in the very first, or when they are starting that we create a space for the team and to onboard the team. That's the only point which we do by a ticket system, because we don't want that we have too much spaces, and so that our system is too fragmented. And but everything else, for example, to go live with a new API, that needs at DATEV something about 2 minutes.
Wow.
That can be done by the team by themselves, and there's no additional step has to be done by our teams. So it's all automated, and they can do it all by their own.
Mm.
So that's a very important point, because in the past I've seen things where somebody from the infrastructure team has to do something to get something live, and that do not work if you have so much teams, because you're all over the day just putting something live. It makes no sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you've really built in self-service into the whole process, with all the controls, but almost all self-service, apart from maybe the initial onboarding when you touch points with the teams. And I was really struck as well in our previous conversations about, you talked about your internal API store. And how you kind of describe it, it was almost one-click self-service, right? You can't really deploy an API without it being in the internal, and everything is automated about
Yeah.
that. Tell us about all the capabilities your internal API store gives you. Now, the reason I want to just focus on this, Andreas, is when I talk to lots of organizations, this is the place they fail. They have a very poor API inventory. They don't know who are consuming their APIs. If they have an inventory, it's incomplete. There's no automation around putting things in the inventory. So tell us a bit about what you have in DATEV.
Okay, what we have introduced is that we have an inventory, and the portals, we have two portals, are all consume only data from the inventory. The first point is to get something in the inventory. There we are using GitHub Actions to do all this stuff. It just build a part of the development deployment pipeline which the team's using by themselves. So there's no click at all. They just fire the events to run the pipeline, and all stuff is done. That's the first point. On another point, if you're looking on the consumer side, there we have also two ways to find the right APIs. We have the API store, and there they will find all the informations, can also download the contracts and so on, and to work with that. That's one point. They can also build an own organization for the team. All the team members are still in there. They also give them the rights and so on, and they also create their the applications which they are using for the using of an API. That's all synchronized with our standard IDPs. So the client IDs and the client secrets are spread over the IDPs which we are providing, and that's the point. On another point, we have also an automated the creation of an API of an app, fully just that they can create it. They do the subscription work, which they can also do in the store, but they can do it also automated and so on. So we have there both sides. For users which are not so frequently working with API, they are using the store. And for teams who are highly automated, all their stuff, they are using some automatization stuff, which is also included in their pipelines.
Yeah. I think this is very impressive because your organization has really invested in this, right? You've really invested in your API platform. You've really invested in these automations. You've made it a priority to actually invest in this. And I think this can't be said for all organizations. You'll be interested to know, I know, it's really interested in knowing how or what drove that kind of that need to invest in this to make sure that you have a solid governance, solid platform there. I think did you mention your actual governance function? Those of you who oversee governance, it's just a handful of you, or is it a large governance? Like how?
Okay, we are split it in 3 teams. One team just do the developer experience. They all provided the tools, the dev portal, the automatizations and so on. They are roughly 7-8 people, and we have an infrastructure team because we have a lot of calls and everything must running. There's 6 people, and we are 4 people, no, what was 3? 4 currently plus 2, 3 external people which just do consulting through the teams, and also this team is also responsible for all the guidelines and the governance, the rules which have to apply for the APIs.
Yeah.
That's also a quite important point. If you just do create rules how to use or how to design APIs and you do not consult the teams, you do not get feedback. And then you have something which is more the ivory tower league and which is not on the ground also. For me, quite important to speak with the teams and see their needs and where we can establish new rules or where we can establish new good practices.
Yeah. So important. So important. So as we round up, Andreas, I just want to ask maybe one or two last questions. So the first one is, where do you see API governance? How do you see API governance looking like in the next, 3 to 5 years for DATEV? How do you see, API governance looking like? Yeah.
Okay. What we are currently seeing is that we are getting more and more customers which are using MCP or which demands on async APIs, and for us it's quite important to have one face to the customer, and that's also the point which we introduce this start next year. The same convenience as we have for the synchron APIs, for the async APIs, and also we are thinking about how to go with MCP and to have there the inventory and also the one face to the customer. So our goal is always that the developer or the designer find their solutions at one point. And also for the automatization, it's quite important that always looks the same, because if you make for every part the tool chain completely different, your developers get not on speed because the cognitive load goes higher and higher.
Absolutely. Yeah. If there was one thing and only one thing, last question, if there was one advice you would give an engineering leader who's trying to scale up API governance in his organization, in his or her organization, what is the one thing you would tell them to look at first? Yeah.
Okay, find the right people for that.
Yeah.
And
people first.
If I'm looking on the technical aspects, a platform which is only on paper didn't work. You have to make something really that you can touch, where you can use, and so on. That's the point. So don't think in papers. Start with the right people.
The right people. Absolutely. Solid advice there. Solid place to start. It always starts with the right people. Look, Andreas, thank you so much. It's been good. Look, I could talk to you for another hour. Really, there's so many. I find it so interesting what you guys are doing in DATEV. It's highly super mature, and even the way you're evolving your platform is really interesting. So thank you so very much. And maybe some other time. Maybe, who knows, we might have another conversation. But thank you very much. If people wanted to find out about you, perhaps what you do, can they find you on LinkedIn or any with the best?
You will find me on LinkedIn. Just send me a notice. I'm always glad to speak with people, because it's always a good point to exchange experience, because we have done a lot wrong, and sometimes we didn't figure out that we are on the wrong track. And it's quite if you see that and you have to change it.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Andreas, and speak to you later. Bye-bye.
See.